I never thought I'd be posting anything this raw, but my hands are still shaking so bad I can barely type. NGL, I'm kinda numb right now. I'm Dale, 38, married to Brenda for 10 years. We have two kids, 8 and 6. I honestly thought we were rock solid. Until this morning, everything just blew up. It was a pretty typical Friday morning, you know? The sun was out, birds were chirping, I was out back, mowing the lawn, had my headphones on, listening to some classic rock, just trying to get through the chore before it got too hot. Brenda was supposed to be getting the kids ready for school, and Ashley, Brenda's sister, was over, probably gossiping on the patio. Nothing unusual, just the sounds of a normal, suburban life. Then, through the blare of my headphones, I heard it, shouting, not just talking loud, but full-on angry yelling. I pulled the headphones off, killing the mower, and the sudden silence felt wrong, heavy. I heard Brenda's voice, tight and frantic. Ashley, stop. You can't say that. And then Ashley, completely blowing up. Oh, so I'm the bad guy now? At least my one-night stand isn't going to blow up our whole family like your little secret with the guy from the gym did. The world just tilted. The guy from the gym. My blood ran cold, like an ice pick straight through my chest. I shut the mower off completely. The sudden quiet was deafening. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the handle. They froze mid-argument when they saw me standing there practically vibrating with something. Shock? Rage? IDK, a combination of everything horrible. Brenda's face drained of all color. She stammered, Dale, baby, it's not what you think. Ashley's exaggerating. It was years ago. It meant nothing. The way she tried to minimize it, to brush it off like I hadn't just heard my entire marriage get thrown into a blender, made me feel physically ill. Ashley just stood there, looking like she wanted the earth to swallow her whole. I looked at Ashley first. My voice, when it came out, was flat, dead. Ashley, I said, you have 1 hour to call Kevin and tell him about your one-night stand, or I will. She paled even further, her jaw dropping. Kevin is her husband, my brother-in-law. Good guy. Didn't deserve this either. Then I turned to Brenda. Get your shit together, pack a bag for the kids for school, because when I get back, I want you gone. I'm divorcing you. My voice was still steady, but it felt like it was coming from someone else, someone colder, harder. Brenda burst into tears, grabbing my arm. No, Dale, please, don't do this. I love you. It was a mistake, a terrible, stupid mistake. She was sobbing, pleading. I won't tell you who it was, Dale. Please don't ask me to. It's over. But I wasn't listening to her desperate pleas. Her refusal to name him just solidified everything. You think you can keep that a secret? I ripped my arm away. NGL, I'm going to find out who this guy from the gym is, and I'm going to make sure his wife knows exactly what kind of man she's married to. I swear to God, Brenda, I'll burn his life down. The thought gave me a grim satisfaction. I needed a target. I walked straight into the house, my mind already racing. I grabbed a duffel bag, threw in a few days of clothes. My tools for the car show I was supposed to be going to later were already in the truck. I called the hotel where I usually stay for the show and booked an extra night. My dad, Frank, went through a nasty divorce when I was a kid. He always told me to protect myself. Assets, custody. I started mentally listing everything, my mind a cold, calculating machine. No time for emotion right now, just facts. As I walked out, Brenda and Ashley were still on the patio, Brenda crying hysterically, Ashley looking absolutely distraught. Ashley saw me and started to speak, but I cut her off with a look. Remember what I said, Ashley? Kevin deserves to know. You've got 45 minutes left. She flinched, then stormed off to her car, peeling out of the driveway. Good. One problem addressed. I got in my truck, started the engine, and just sat there for a second. The familiar rumble of the engine was a strange comfort. It felt surreal, like I was watching a movie of my own life falling apart. Brenda was still on the patio, a crumpled mess. It was hard to reconcile this woman, sobbing and broken, with the Brenda I thought I knew. I remembered meeting her in college, fresh-faced and bright. She'd actually been seeing a guy named Dustin back then, a real jerk. and I'd been the knight in shining armor who rescued her. Funny how things come full circle. I backed out of the driveway, not looking back. The car show was my excuse, a place to disappear for a few days, to think, to strategize. My hands were still shaking, but a different kind of tremor now. Not from shock, but from the raw, cold determination setting in. My old life was gone. This new one, filled with betrayal and anger, was just beginning. That first night in the hotel was hell. I barely slept. My mind just kept replaying Ashley's words, the guy from the gym. Over and over, every time I closed my eyes, I saw Brenda's face, twisted in tears, begging me not to ask who it was. The thought of her with someone else, behind my back, while I was busy thinking everything was fine, was a gut punch. I felt like a damn fool, an idiot. The next morning, I woke up with a headache and a burning resolve. No more feeling sorry for myself. It was time to act. First thing I did was open my laptop and start researching divorce attorneys. Not just any attorney, but one who specialized in infidelity cases and, crucially, asset protection. My dad, Frank, went through a rough divorce, and he always drilled it into me. Secure your finances first. I filtered through dozens of profiles, looking for someone aggressive, someone who wouldn't let me get steamrolled. I sent out a few preliminary emails, stating my situation in terse, factual terms. No emotion, just the outline of what I was facing. Next, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. I needed an expert, someone who knew how to get answers. That's when I thought of Steve. Steve was an old college buddy, a former cop who'd moved into private investigation a few years back. He was sharp, discreet, and had a reputation for getting results. I hesitated for a split second. This felt so extreme. But then I remembered Brenda's refusal to name the guy, her insistence it meant nothing. NGL, that just fueled my anger. If she wouldn't tell me, I'd find out another way. I dialed Steve's number. He picked up on the second ring. "Dale, what's up, man? Long time no hear." His voice was gruff but friendly. "Hey, Steve, yeah, long time. Look, I'm calling you on professional terms. I need your help. My wife, Brenda, she's been cheating on me." There was a beat of silence on the other end. "Damn, Dale, I'm sorry to hear that. How did you find out?" I quickly recounted the patio argument, Ashley's accidental confession. Steve listened, making a few non-committal hums. When I finished, he said, "Okay, Dale, first, breathe. This sucks, man. I know. But we can get through this. What do you need from me?" "Everything. I need to know who this guy is. I need evidence. Everything for the divorce." Steve went into professional mode. "All right, here's the deal. For evidence, discreet is key. We're talking digital forensics, phone records, social media, emails, if we can get access, and surveillance, physical surveillance. What can you give me on Brenda?" I gave him her phone number, her common email addresses, her car make and model, a blue Honda CRV. I also mentioned her work schedule, where she usually went to the gym. She said it was the guy from the gym, I repeated, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Perfect," Steve said. "That gives us a starting point. And here's something else, a GPS tracker for her car. Super discreet, small. We can stick it on the undercarriage. It'll give us real-time movements without having to physically follow her everywhere. You good with that?" "Absolutely," I said without a moment's hesitation. Whatever it took. After I hung up with Steve, my mind started to churn, connecting dots I hadn't even noticed before. Brenda's behavior hadn't been completely normal, had it? All those late nights at the gym. She'd always been active, but it had suddenly ramped up, almost obsessively over the last year or so. And her phone, she used to leave it lying around, now it was always with her, face down. Classic red flags, NGL. How could I have been so blind? One memory jumped out at me specifically. About 6 months ago, Brenda came home with these beautiful, delicate diamond earrings. Not huge, but definitely not cheap. I asked her where she got them. "Oh, a friend gave them to me," she'd said, almost too casually with a slight flush to her cheeks. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. Now it screamed. I pulled up our joint credit card statements, meticulously scrolling back through the past year. Nothing. No jewelry purchases, no large withdrawals for Kim. Where did those earrings come from? A friend, indeed. I started listing out her new hobbies in my head. Her suddenly intense interest in hiking groups, always with a new friend, always a group. But sometimes she'd be gone for hours longer than planned. Her girls' nights out that started getting more frequent, often ending with her coming home just a little too late, smelling faintly of a different perfume than usual. I dismissed it as paranoia then, but now it all clicked into place, forming a disturbing mosaic. And Ashley's confession. Why now? Was she finally fed up? Was it an honest mistake, or was there some underlying tension that just boiled over? I remembered Brenda's frantic attempts to silence her, almost like Ashley knew too much. It wasn't just a random slip. It felt like Ashley was carrying a burden, and in her anger, she finally dropped it. A cold, hard anger started to settle in my gut, replacing the initial shock and despair. This wasn't just a mistake, a moment of weakness. This was a pattern, a carefully constructed lie. And the more I thought about it, the more determined I became. She thought she could get away with it. Not on my watch. I was going to peel back every layer of this deception. Steve worked fast. Within a day, he confirmed the GPS tracker was discreetly installed on Brenda's car. He also mentioned he'd set up some preliminary surveillance to get a baseline on her movements. I felt a weird mix of relief and dread. Relief that I was actively doing something. Dread for what I was about to uncover. While Steve was doing his thing, I decided to do a little recon of my own. I went back to the house under the guise of picking up some more clothes. Brenda was out, presumably at work or maybe the gym. I knew I wouldn't have much time, so I headed straight for her car in the garage. My hands were still a bit shaky as I opened the passenger door, trying to be careful not to leave any obvious traces. I started with the glove compartment, then the center console. Nothing out of the ordinary, just the usual CDs and old receipts. But then I pushed my hand under the passenger seat, feeling around. My fingers brushed against something soft, fabric. I pulled it out. It was a high-end gift bag, the kind you get from a fancy jewelry store. My heart started hammering against my ribs. Inside, carefully tucked away, was a small velvet box and a folded receipt. I opened the box first. Inside, nestled on satin, was a pair of sleek, modern cufflinks. They looked expensive. Then I unfolded the receipt. My eyes scanned the details. Men's luxury watch and designer cufflinks. The total price made my jaw clench. We're talking thousands, not hundreds. This wasn't some casual thank you gift to a friend. This was a significant purchase. A gift for someone she was deeply involved with. Someone she wanted to impress. It all clicked into place. The expensive earrings she supposedly got from a friend. Now these. Brenda was clearly not just receiving gifts, she was giving them. And expensive ones, at that. It instantly tied back to her refusal to name the other man. She was protecting him, shielding him from the consequences, likely because he was someone important, someone whose life she didn't want to disrupt, or someone who could provide her with these luxuries. NGL, the thought was sickening. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with an email from Steve. First batch of visuals, the subject line read. I opened it, my thumb hovering over the first attachment. My breath hitched. It was Brenda, standing outside a coffee shop, laughing. And next to her, a man. Tall, well-dressed, probably in his late 40s or early 50s. He had a confident, almost arrogant smirk. He was clearly fit, probably the gym guy. He looked like money, like someone who could afford to buy expensive jewelry and receive it. This wasn't just some random hookup. This was someone established. Seeing them together, laughing, touching each other's arms so casually was a punch to the gut. The pictures confirmed it wasn't just a one-off mistake. This was a relationship, a prolonged, intimate deception. Brenda's lies were deeper, more pervasive than I had initially imagined. My next move was to tackle her personal laptop. It was an old one she mostly used for her online hobbies and personal stuff, separate from her work computer. I remembered she'd forgotten her password once, and I'd helped her reset it, so I knew the recovery questions. With a cold determination, I gained access. The amount of digital evidence I found was staggering. I started with her email, a separate, hidden email account I never knew about. Then chat logs from some encrypted messaging app. Photos, some of them explicit, between her and this unknown man. I scrolled through months of conversations, messages filled with pet names, secret meetup plans, expressions of longing. It painted a vivid, sickening picture of a parallel life she was leading. There were even a few messages hinting at the gym as their initial meeting place, confirming Ashley's accidental intel. I worked methodically, meticulously, downloading everything, every email, every chat log, every photo, every file. I dumped it all onto a secure external hard drive I'd bought specifically for this purpose. This wasn't just about proving infidelity. This was about building a case, documenting every single detail of her betrayal. I felt numb, but also a growing, righteous anger that hardened my resolve. My phone rang. It was Steve. "Dale, good news. I've identified our guy. His name is Todd Miller. He's a pretty prominent real estate developer here in town. Runs Miller Holdings. Married, 2 kids. You know him?" Todd Miller. The name echoed in my head. I didn't know him personally, but his name was everywhere. His company developed half the new luxury homes in our area. He was known, respected, and married. This wasn't just some random gym buddy. This was a whole different level of betrayal. I immediately went online and started researching Todd Miller. His company website, his LinkedIn profile, articles about his community involvement. I saw pictures of him with his wife, standing next to her at charity events, smiling. A perfect, polished public image. NGL, my stomach churned. He was everything Brenda seemed to be looking for. Successful, powerful, connected. And he had a wife, a family, that he was apparently willing to risk for Brenda. This was going to get messy. Todd Miller. The name was still buzzing in my head. I spent hours online confirming everything Steve told me. Real estate mogul, family man, pillar of the community. I found his company's website, articles about his charity work, and pictures with his wife, Sarah. She looked kind, elegant, completely unsuspecting, probably. My anger, which had been a dull throb, sharpened into a laser focus. Sarah deserved to know. Todd deserved to be exposed. Brenda too, but right now, Todd was the immediate target. Steve sent over his comprehensive report on Todd Miller a couple of days later. It was chillingly detailed. His daily routine, gym in the morning, office, lunch meetings, occasionally a late night at the office, all the usual covers. Steve had even tracked some of Todd's more unusual movements, little detours that didn't align with his public schedule. Places I suspected Brenda had been at, thanks to the GPS tracker on her car. But the biggest bombshell came from my own digging. I remembered a conversation about Brenda having a small savings account years ago, before we got married, but I'd assumed it was merged into our joint accounts. Turns out it wasn't. Using some old information I found in our tax documents, I managed to access an online portal to her individual bank account. And what I saw made my blood run cold. It wasn't a savings account, it was an active checking account, completely separate from our joint finances. And it showed regular, substantial deposits. Not payroll from her job, not gifts, nothing I could trace to a legitimate income source. These were large, round numbers, consistent amounts, deposited at regular intervals. It didn't take a genius to figure it out. Todd Miller wasn't just her lover, he was her sugar daddy. He was funding her. The expensive earrings, the watch and cufflinks for him, it all made sick, perfect sense now. She wasn't just cheating, she was effectively selling herself. The rage was almost blinding. This wasn't just a physical betrayal, it was a deep, calculated financial deception that had been going on under my nose. I had to restrain myself from smashing the laptop. Instead, I methodically copied every single transaction record, downloaded statements, and saved them to my secure drive. Every penny, every date, evidence. Then, fueled by that burning anger, I remembered something else. Brenda was obsessed with keeping her old phone numbers active, even when she got a new phone. "Just in case someone needs to reach me," she'd say. Total BS. I found one of her old phones tucked away in a drawer in her nightstand, a burner phone she never used for anything important. My gut told me to check it. Sure enough, it was still active, still linked to a different, unknown number. I went through it, and there it was. A flood of messages between her and Todd. Explicit, intimate, utterly sickening. Pet names like My Little Firefly from Todd, Brenda calling him My Rock. Pictures, not just of them, but of gifts, of places they'd been together. Messages detailing their longing for each other, planning clandestine meetings, making excuses to their respective spouses. The content confirmed it was not a one-night stand, not a short fling. This was a deep, long-term affair. They talked about their future, about how much they loved each other. He even mentioned helping her financially, making sure she was taken care of. But that's when I found messages referring to the diamond earrings, the surprise watch, and other lavish gifts she'd received. All documented, all explicit. My stomach turned. I felt like I was going to throw up. I meticulously backed up everything from that burner phone too. Every message, every picture, every detail. This wasn't just proof. This was a complete narrative of their betrayal, written in their own words. I called my lawyer, Sarah Jenkins, the one I'd emailed earlier. She was sharp, no nonsense. I explained that I had a mountain of evidence, digital and financial, implicating my wife and a prominent local businessman. She listened carefully, then advised me, Dale, this is crucial. You've done well to collect this. Now you need to make sure it's all meticulously documented, time-stamped, and secured. We need a clear chain of custody. Do not delete anything. Do not confront anyone until we have our strategy locked down. I understand, I told her, my voice tight. I'm not doing anything rash. I need them to feel what I'm feeling. And we will ensure they do, legally speaking, she replied, her voice firm. Hanging up, a twisted sense of vindication washed over me. I had proof, undeniable, damning proof. But it was mixed with a profound, aching pain. The woman I loved, the mother of my children, had been living this elaborate lie funded by another man. The weight of her betrayal was crushing. The day came for the confrontation. My lawyer, Sarah, advised against doing it alone, but I needed to look Brenda in the eye, to watch her world shatter like mine had. I went back to the house, the divorce papers and restraining order tucked into my bag, a cold resolve in my heart. Brenda was there, looking pale and fragile, probably still reeling from Ashley's outburst. Brenda, I said, my voice flat, holding up the stack of printouts, the messages, the bank statements, the photos. We need to talk. I know everything. Her face went from pale to ashen. Her eyes darted to the papers, then back to me. Dale, I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered, trying to play dumb, but her voice was barely a whisper. I laid out the evidence, piece by damning piece. The burner phone, the explicit messages with Todd, the pictures, the secret bank account with the huge deposits, the expensive gifts she'd bought him, the earrings she'd received. It was a torrent of undeniable proof. She crumbled. Literally, she sank to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Okay, you're right. It's true. All of it, she wailed, tears streaming down her face. It's Todd. But it wasn't just Todd. It was Dustin, too, from college. He reached out a few months ago and things just got out of hand. Dustin, my mind reeled. The jerk from college. The one I thought I'd saved her from. NGL, a new wave of nausea hit me. So she hadn't just been cheating. She'd been collecting. And the money? I pushed, my voice like ice. Did Todd pay for you to screw him, Brenda? Was that the arrangement? She recoiled, her face horrified. No, it wasn't like that. He just helped me out. I was feeling so alone, Dale. You were always working, always distant. Classic gaslighting, blaming me for her choices. I scoffed. Don't you dare try to pin this on me. My distance didn't put a burner phone in your hand or a sugar daddy in your bed. My distance didn't open a secret bank account to stash his money or buy him luxury watches. That was all you, Brenda. Every single choice. I then laid out my plan, cold and precise. I've filed for divorce. These are the papers. You're also being served with a temporary restraining order. You have X hours to collect your personal belongings, and then you need to leave. I'm changing the locks, and all joint accounts are frozen, effective immediately. Her mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. She finally found her voice. My business? What about my half of your business? My investments? Your half of my business is exactly zero, I stated, my voice devoid of emotion. My lawyer has already clarified this. Your infidelity, combined with the financial misconduct we've documented, means you have no claim. The court will see to that. You'll be lucky to walk away with anything beyond what you came into the marriage with, and maybe enough for a modest apartment. The next few days were a blur. I actually followed through. The locks were changed, the accounts frozen. Brenda's lawyer, a sleazy-looking guy, immediately tried to push for a quick, quiet settlement. They wanted to make it disappear, probably to protect Todd Miller's reputation as much as Brenda's. But I wasn't having it. No, I told Sarah, I want this to go to trial. I want everything exposed. I want them to pay for what they did. Maximum legal and moral consequences. Sarah looked at me, a flicker of something in her eyes, maybe approval, maybe concern. Understood, Dale. We'll proceed accordingly. Your evidence is compelling. We will present it all. My next move was to contact Sarah Miller. I agonized over this. It felt incredibly cruel, but she deserved to know the truth about her husband, just like I deserved to know about my wife. I drafted a careful, concise email, attaching a few of the less explicit but still damning photos and messages. I planned to send it anonymously, but with enough information for her to connect the dots herself. It felt like walking a tightrope, but I knew I had to do it. And Todd, I wasn't just content with exposing him to his wife. I was going to strategically leak information, not directly, not from me, but through channels that would ensure his professional and public reputation would be utterly destroyed. He wouldn't just lose his family, he'd lose his standing, his business, everything he built on a foundation of lies. Through all this, I hadn't forgotten Ashley. She was still struggling with her own secret, her one-night stand. I hadn't followed up on my ultimatum, knowing she was caught in the crossfire. I resolved to protect Ashley from any further fallout while ensuring Brenda faced every single consequence of her actions. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about justice. Stick around to the end to see how life's costly choices unfold. The hardest part emotionally was setting up the meeting with Sarah Miller. I felt sick to my stomach, knowing I was about to drop a nuclear bomb on her life. But she deserved to know the truth. I used an anonymous email to contact her, hinting that I had sensitive information regarding her husband that she absolutely needed to see. We agreed to meet at a quiet, out-of-the-way coffee shop in a neighboring town. When she walked in, she looked exactly as I expected. Elegant, composed, but with a slight weariness around her eyes. She sat down, her hands clasped in front of her, looking at me with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "You're the one who emailed me?" she asked, her voice soft. Yes, Sarah, my name is Dale, and I'm incredibly sorry to be the one to tell you this, but your husband, Todd, is having an affair with my wife, Brenda." Her face went blank for a second, then shattered. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't make a sound. She just looked at me, devastated. I pushed across the table a discreet folder containing printouts of the most damning evidence. The burner phone messages, the pictures, the detailed financial transactions into Brenda's secret account. She went through it all, slowly, meticulously, her hand trembling as she read Todd's pet names for Brenda, saw the explicit photos. Her composure crumbled, and she buried her face in her hands, soft ahs racking her body. I sat there, just letting her process it, feeling a profound sadness for her. She was an innocent party in all this, just like me. After a long while, she looked up, her eyes red-rimmed but hardening. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice surprisingly steady. "Thank you for telling me. It took incredible courage, Dale. I had my suspicions, but I never had proof like this." Then she surprised me. "He's done this before," she confessed, her voice thick with pain. "Todd has a history of affairs. I've turned a blind eye for years, hoping he'd change, hoping for the sake of our kids. But this is different. The money, the depth of it, he's never been this blatant or this financially reckless." She also hinted at some questionable financial dealings within his company that she'd vaguely known about. A new resolve settled between us. We weren't just two heartbroken spouses anymore. We were a united front against Todd. We started strategizing, meticulously planning how to publicly and professionally dismantle his life. This wasn't about revenge for me anymore. It was about justice for both of us, and for the families he'd so carelessly ruined. My lawyer, Sarah Jenkins, was a key player. She immediately drafted a formal letter citing Todd's affair with Brenda and the potential misuse of company assets given the mysterious deposits into Brenda's account, and sent it directly to the board of directors at Miller Holdings. This was going to hit him where it hurt the most, his professional reputation and his wallet. Simultaneously, I carefully began leaking selected, damaging information to a few local media outlets. Not directly from me, but through anonymous tips and encrypted messages, giving them just enough to start digging. I highlighted Todd Miller's community leader persona and how it clashed with his hidden life. The scandal was brewing. Within days, the tremors started. Rumors began circulating. Local tabloids picked up on cryptic hints. Suddenly, Todd Miller, the esteemed real estate developer, was facing an internal investigation at his company. Board members were asking questions. His public appearances became strained. His professional reputation, which had seemed so unassailable, began to unravel at an astonishing pace. And then, Sarah made her move. She filed for divorce from Todd, citing adultery and financial impropriety. The news hit the local papers like a bomb. It was public, irreversible. A grim sense of accomplishment settled over me. Todd was finally facing consequences, but it was tinged with the lingering, deep-seated pain of my own betrayal. This wasn't a victory dance. It was a cold, hard step toward a new, unwanted reality. I shifted my focus, calling Ashley my daughter. She'd been staying with her grandparents, insulated from the worst of the fallout, but I knew she'd eventually hear things. "Hey, sweetie," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Just calling to say I love you. And no matter what happens, Dad's here for you. Always." I needed her to know that amidst all this destruction, my love for her was solid, unwavering. Ashley and her emotional well-being were my true North Star now. The court proceedings were as brutal and draining as I expected. Brenda's legal team, obviously instructed to try and salvage something for her, went on the offensive. They argued for her right to a significant share of my business, our joint assets, and substantial alimony. They tried to paint her as a victim, a heartbroken wife who made a mistake because I was distant. The gaslighting continued, even in court. But my lawyer, Sarah Jenkins, was relentless. She systematically dismantled their arguments, presenting the overwhelming evidence we had collected. The printouts of Brenda's secret bank account, detailing the mysterious large deposits. The explicit messages from the burner phone proving the depth and duration of her affair with Todd. The records of the expensive gifts she'd bought him. The court saw it all. Brenda's face was a mask of shame and fury as her lawyer's arguments fell flat one by one. The judge, clearly swayed by the irrefutable evidence of infidelity and, more importantly, the financial misconduct, ruled overwhelmingly in my favor. Brenda's claims on my business were dismissed entirely. She was awarded only a fraction of the marital assets she had clearly expected, essentially what she brought into the marriage. No alimony. Her legal team looked stunned. I felt a cold, hard satisfaction. Justice. Immediately after the settlement, I worked with Sarah Jenkins to establish a secure trust for Ashley. This wasn't just about protecting my assets, it was about protecting her future. I wanted to ensure that no matter what happened, my daughter's inheritance was safeguarded, completely separate from anything Brenda could ever touch. Brenda, I heard through the grapevine, was in a truly precarious financial situation. Cut off from my money, and with Todd no longer willing or able to provide for her, she was struggling. The karmic irony wasn't lost on me. She chased after wealth and ended up with nothing. Meanwhile, Todd Miller's world continued to crumble. The articles about his affair, fueled by the discreet leaks and Sarah's public divorce filing, were everywhere. Miller Holdings' stock took a significant hit. The internal investigation, sparked by my lawyer's letter, revealed deeper financial improprieties and mismanagement that he'd tried to cover up. He was forced to accept a massive pay cut, publicly humiliated and relegated to a ceremonial role within his own company. His prominent local figure status was gone, replaced by disgraced millionaire. Disgraced? Sarah, on the other hand, thanks to the mountain of evidence I provided, secured a very favorable divorce settlement from Todd. She was able to protect her children's inheritance and walk away financially secure, starting a new chapter of her life free from his deceit. We didn't keep in touch regularly, but we shared a mutual respect, a quiet acknowledgement of the battle we'd fought and won together. My financial security, which had been under threat, was largely intact. My lawyer also managed to recover a significant portion of the funds Brenda had illicitly spent from our joint accounts on her affair. Physically, I was fine. Financially, I was fine. But the emotional cost ran deep. The betrayal had left a gaping wound, a scar that would take a long, long time to heal. I knew I couldn't dwell on the past. My priority now was rebuilding my life, especially strengthening my bond with Ashley. We started spending more quality time together, just the two of us, creating new memories, creating a new normalcy. She was resilient, thankfully, but the upheaval had taken its toll, and I needed to be her anchor. I also took steps to upgrade all my security measures, both for my business and my personal property. New alarm systems, better digital safeguards. NGL, the whole ordeal made me acutely aware of vulnerabilities I never knew I had. As the dust began to settle, I started contemplating a fresh start, maybe a change of scenery, a relocation, a chance to put this chapter behind me entirely and build something completely new, free from the ghosts of betrayal. The idea was daunting, but also exhilarating. It was time to move forward. Once the dust settled from the divorce and Todd Miller's public implosion, Ashley finally gathered the courage to confess her one-night stand to Kevin. It was a tough conversation, I know, because I was there for her, offering quiet support. Kevin was deeply hurt, NGL. It was a serious blow to him, coming on the heels of the whole Brenda situation. But after some raw, honest talks and a few days of painful reflection, Kevin, being the good man he is, decided to forgive Ashley. He told her he appreciated her honesty, even though it was late, and that he wanted to work through it. It wasn't easy, but they started rebuilding their marriage painstakingly, brick by brick. Ashley and I, in turn, found a new depth to our relationship. The shared trauma, the difficult conversations, the unwavering support I gave her, it all forged a profound healing process. It was built on a new kind of trust, one that had been tested and strengthened. She saw me not just as her father, but as a steadfast ally. Brenda predictably tried to reconnect with Ashley. After all, Ashley was family. But Ashley, perhaps seeing the chaos Brenda had wrought, maintained a healthy, firm distance. She wasn't cold, but she wasn't going to let herself be pulled back into Brenda's drama or manipulation. It was a clear boundary, and I was proud of her for setting it. Brenda's life, from what I heard, was a mess. She faced significant social ostracization. Former friends and acquaintances, people we'd known for years, openly judged her. The local gossip mill was brutal. She lost her social standing, just like Todd had. There were even rumors about her struggling to find a stable job, given her reputation. As for me, there were definitely moments of profound loneliness. Nights alone in the quiet house, the absence of a family unit palpable. But I drew strength from knowing I had acted with integrity. I had faced betrayal, protected my child, and sought justice, not just revenge. That conviction became my bedrock. Cautiously, after a year or so, and with Sarah Jenkins's encouragement, I started exploring dating again. It was weird, scary. I had so many walls up, so many boundaries. I was extra careful, almost overly analytical, always on the lookout for red flags. But I knew I couldn't let Brenda's choices define my future happiness. I also found immense solace and connection in a support group for survivors of infidelity. Hearing other people's stories, sharing my own, realizing I wasn't alone in this specific kind of pain, it was incredibly healing. It helped me process the emotional fallout in a way that therapy alone hadn't quite managed. Ashley, meanwhile, thrived. She immersed herself in her college studies, excelling academically. She was focused on her future career, her personal growth, building a life for herself that was entirely her own, independent of the family drama. Seeing her flourish was one of my greatest joys. I visited my father, Frank, not long after everything settled. We sat on his porch and I shared everything with him. The raw details, the lessons learned. He listened intently, then just squeezed my shoulder. "Son," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I always knew you were strong, but to come through all this with your integrity intact, protecting Ashley and building a new life, I couldn't be prouder." That meant the world to me. At my business, I implemented even stronger financial oversight, new checks and balances. The experience had taught me valuable, if painful, lessons about trust and vigilance. I also took up a new hobby, woodworking. There was something incredibly therapeutic about working with my hands, creating something tangible and beautiful from raw materials. It was a quiet, meditative process that brought me a sense of peace and personal fulfillment. Slowly but surely, I came to a profound understanding. The ultimate form of revenge wasn't destroying Brenda or Todd. It was building a truly fulfilling life for myself, a life of honesty, peace, and genuine happiness. That was the real victory. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the divorce from Brenda was finalized. That last signature, that final stamp from the court, brought a strange, profound sense of closure. It wasn't happiness, not exactly, but a deep, resonant peace. The battle was over. The chapter was closed. Brenda, as expected, was left with minimal assets. Her secret account had been drained, her claims on my business dismissed. She had no significant financial support network, no Todd to run to, no family willing to enable her. She was facing the stark reality of her choices alone. Part of me, the angry part, felt vindicated. The other part, the human part, just felt a weary sadness for the path she'd chosen. Todd Miller's career was, as far as I could tell, irrevocably destroyed. He lost his prominent position at Miller Holdings. The scandal was too public, the financial improprieties too severe. He vanished from the public eye, his name now synonymous with scandal rather than success. His carefully constructed life had crumbled, and he had only himself to blame. Sarah, however, truly thrived. Empowered by her new freedom and the financial security she gained from Todd's downfall, she successfully started a new chapter in her life. She moved, took her kids, and was building something fresh and healthy. We occasionally exchanged texts, a quiet acknowledgement of shared survival. Ashley and Kevin's relationship continued to strengthen, growing from the ashes of honesty. It was a hard road, but they chose to walk it together, communicating openly and rebuilding trust. Watching them, I saw hope. I had to make peace with the past, too. That meant forgiving myself for being blindsided, for trusting someone who clearly didn't deserve it. It wasn't my fault that Brenda chose to cheat. That was her decision, her moral failing, not mine. Releasing that self-blame was a huge step in my own healing. I dedicated myself to my own well-being, focusing on happiness and personal growth. The woodworking became more than a hobby, it was a passion. I started exercising consistently, eating better, reading more. I was rebuilding myself, physically and mentally. The marital home, with all its ghosts and memories, was too big, too much. I sold it, shedding that heavy layer of the past. I moved into a smaller, more manageable place, a fresh start in a simpler space. As for Brenda's remaining personal belongings, the few things she hadn't taken, I donated them all to charity. It was a symbolic severing of ties, a final release. My relationship with Ashley deepened even further. We were more open, more honest with each other than ever before. She felt safe, secure, knowing that I was her unwavering constant. That connection, that bond, was the most precious thing I had gained from this whole ordeal. I even started thinking about how I could use my experience to help others. Maybe a blog or a support group for men who've been through similar betrayals. NGL, there's a lot of pain out there, and if my story could help even one person navigate the complexities of infidelity, it would be worth it. Reflecting on it all, the true devastating cost of betrayal was immense, but so was the power of human resilience. I had been knocked down, dragged through the mud, but I had gotten back up. I discovered a renewed sense of purpose, one that extended beyond just my business. It was about living authentically, creating a life of integrity, and helping others. I fully embraced my newfound freedom. I was no longer defined by my failed marriage, by Brenda's choices, or by the pain of the past. I was Dale, a man who had faced adversity and emerged stronger, clearer, and more grounded. I looked forward to a future built on unwavering trust, authenticity, and peace. It wouldn't be easy, but I was ready for it. The fallout from Brenda's betrayal has been profound and continues to reverberate. NGL, while I managed to secure my financial future and protect Ashley, the emotional landscape of my life is forever altered. Brenda is isolated, living with the full weight of her choices, stripped of the comfort and stability she once took for granted. Her social standing is gone, her reputation in tatters. Todd Miller, the prominent local figure, saw his career and public image utterly destroyed, his family fractured. There's no coming back for him, professionally or personally. Even as Ashley and Kevin navigate their path to rebuilding trust, the memory of that raw confession will always be a part of their story. My own journey, while leading to a renewed sense of self and purpose, is scarred. The trust I once freely gave is now guarded, a defense mechanism born of deep pain. While I've found peace, the knowledge of such calculated deceit leaves an indelible mark. Betrayal doesn't just end with a divorce decree. Its consequences ripple outward, a constant reminder of how fragile trust truly is.